when the award holder, the person who has won the award, comes to India for enforcing the award, the party who has lost the arbitration, who I will call the award debtor, the award debtor has the right to seek refusal of enforcement under Section 48 of the Arbitration Act. But today, I will not be going into too much detail about what happens in setting aside or refusal of enforcement, because there are two aspects of that. One is there is an exhaustive list in Section 34 as well as Section 48 for the limited grounds on which enforcement can be refused or the award can be set aside. And two, there are paradoxically there are varied interpretations, so that can go into another session of its own. Today, what I am going to deal with and focus on mainly is the execution part of it or the enforcement part of it. So when you get the award in hand, and if the other side is not going to comply voluntarily, what are the steps that are required to be taken? What is the procedure that is followed? That is something I will be dealing with today. I will focus on that aspect today. Now, I can see that people are still joining. So what we'll do is we'll wait for 5 minutes and then we'll go ahead, if that's okay. In the meanwhile, if everyone can just confirm that I am audible and that the screen is visible. Okay, great. And also, I'll just request everyone else to just be on mute, like Vivek has instructed all of us. So it seems that someone the screen is not visible. Vivek, can you look into that in your link?
Hi, the screen you mean by the
Document.
the document? Yes, I haven't shared it. I'll share it.
Yes, please. Share it so we'll then we'll. I hope everyone can see the screen now, the document also. Okay, great. Seems like everyone can see the document now. So, Vivek, if you can just widen your screen so that everybody can see properly. So now let's take a look at Section 36. Section 35 read with Section 36 of the Arbitration Act. They say that an arbitral award where Part 1 is applicable, an arbitral award will be deemed as a decree of the court. And since it's deemed as a decree of the court, it has to be enforced in the same manner as if it were a decree of the court. Before the 1996 Arbitration Act, under the 1940 regime, you would have to separately apply to the court in order to get an affirmation on the award. After that, only you could go ahead and execute the award. That has been done away with. Now the award that you have in hand is directly enforceable, meaning that you can directly go and seek execution. Now, one of the questions is, once you have the award, what if, say, the seat of arbitration was in Mumbai? And yesterday, as we discussed in one of the examples, the respondent was in Haryana. All the property is in Haryana. Generally, what would happen is if the award or a court decree is passed in Mumbai, you would have to seek a transfer of that decree from the Mumbai court to the to the Haryana courts in order to get execution of the award in Haryana. But the Supreme Court has held in Sundaram Finance versus Abdul Samad that it's a decree is different from an arbitral award, even though an arbitral award has been treated like a decree. An arbitral award can be enforced in anywhere in the country where there are assets, for example, where otherwise the court would have jurisdiction. There has to be something that you would have to show that is relevant to that particular location. So in the case that we discussed, even though the seat of the arbitration is Mumbai, if the property is located in Haryana or Gurgaon, for example, you can apply to Gurgaon courts directly for enforcement of the arbitral award. Now, what if the property of the respondent or the award debtor is located in various jurisdictions across India? Now, it has been clarified that in such circumstances, it is possible, there is nothing stopping the award holder from commencing simultaneous proceedings for execution in all of these places. Okay. Now, let's go to the next part. If you can scroll down below. Now, this is one of the most crucial aspects which has now been settled quite conclusively. Section 36, as it was before the 2015 Amendment Act, contained certain ambiguous language. It suggested that once a Section 34 has been filed, there is an automatic stay on the enforcement of the arbitral award. That is something that was decided by the Supreme Court in one of the judgments. That created a complete havoc, because once the award debtor files a Section 34, everything comes to a halt, and there will be a long hiatus where the relevant court will keep deciding, or they'll hear the Section 34 petition, clear it off, and then there'll be appeals, etc. Until then, the award will not be capable of enforcement. Now, it was clarified in 2015 that just because you file an application under Section 34 does not by itself mean that the award will be stayed. The award debtor will have to specifically request for a stay and will have to make out a case for why stay should be granted. In Hindustan Construction Company versus Union of India, the Supreme Court once again clarified that as a matter of fact, or rather as a matter of law, there was no automatic stay on arbitral awards even before the 2015 Amendment Act. And separately, it was also held as a clarificatory position that Section 87 of the 2019 Amendment, which was introduced rather through the 2019 Amendment, was unconstitutional. This is because it barred the retrospective applicability of the 2015 amendments to proceedings that were going on when the 2015 amendments came into force. To clarify, for proceedings that were pending on or before 23rd October 2015, then the amended act will apply, and there will be no automatic stay on an arbitral award just because you file a Section 34. We can go a little bit below. Now, as we discussed, that doesn't mean that the court will not grant a stay. The court is always, it's in the discretion of the court to grant a stay. It is also in the discretion of the court to see what kind of conditions the court will bind the award debtor by while granting a stay. Now, if it's a money decree, the court can say that the award debtor, if the award debtor wants to stay on the execution of the award, then from whatever has been granted in a money decree, the amount that has been granted, a part of that amount or the entire amount should be deposited with the court. Only then the court will grant a stay. Now, in Indian Oil Corporation versus Toyo Engineering, this is a judgment from this year itself, very recent one, where one of the parties argued that now that there is no automatic stay, it means that the entire amount should be deposited. But the court held that there is no mandate as such, where just because there is no automatic stay, the entire amount that has been awarded has to be required as a deposit from the award debtor in order to grant a stay. That remains as the court's discretion. Now,
you're not audible.
Okay. Am I audible now?
No.
Okay, can someone look into that, please? Can people please put on the chat if I am audible? And okay, it seems that most people can say are saying that I am audible. And on the other screen, if I can just request Vivek, can you share the screen, the document? It seems that it is not visible. Okay. Okay, now I'll just carry on. So what I was saying is that when there is a request for stay, the court can mandate you to deposit certain amounts, and only on that condition, if you fulfill that condition, the stay will be granted. If you do not fulfill that condition in the time period that has been given by the court, then the stay will be vacated and the award holder will be entitled to go and get enforcement of the award or execution of the award. Now I keep saying execution, but what is that supposed to mean? How do you get an execution of the award? Now see, there are various things that the award can direct the debtor to do. One of the things, broadly speaking, it could be payment of monies, and two, it would be specific performance, that certain property has to be handed over or certain acts have to be done. When there's a question of monies to be paid, if the award debtor is not paying you the money, then the main thing that you will do is identify the immovable, movable, and other assets of the award debtor and seek attachment of these properties. Now, this is a staged process. First, you will request for attachment of these properties, and then the award debtor will be called upon to make the payment. If in a specified period of time the award debtor still doesn't pay the money, then those assets will be sold. They will be sold through whatever procedure has been prescribed under law. And after that property has been sold, the monies that are received will be appropriated against your award. Now, after selling all the properties, if you still don't get the amount, then that is unfortunate, because after that there is not much else that you can do. But what can also be done is to seek arrest and detention of the award debtor in civil prison, where it's a matter of specific performance, where, for example, some land or any other property has to be given to the award holder. Then one of the ways of seeking execution, the court's help in seeking execution, is to seek delivery of that property. And that way the court will mandate the award debtor to transfer the property, make sure that you come into possession of the property. In both cases, whether it is grant of money or delivery of property, since we are bringing the award debtor's property into question, now you as an award holder, without the order of the court, you can't personally go and seize any property or tamper with any records or go to the bank and say that now please freeze this person's account. You have to seek specific orders for that. And what you can seek is an agent of the court, like we discussed yesterday under section 9. What you can seek is an appointment of a receiver. So during the course of the execution proceedings, before the entire sale is done or before the attachment is entirely affected, you can seek for appointment of the receiver, who will become de facto custodian or de jure custodian of the property till the time the proceedings are going on. These are the broad ways of how an award is executed. Now let's look at some other considerations when we seek execution of an award. If we can scroll a little bit further below. Now, just like we saw yesterday, when we are filing a notice of arbitration, you should check what are the claims and if the claims are falling within the period of limitation. The period of limitation for claims, as we saw yesterday, was 3 years in most cases. In here, it is treated as a decree of the court. For enforcement of a decree of the court, the Limitation Act provides that you have 12 years. 12 years from the date it becomes enforceable. Which means that when you get the decree in hand, not the date of passing itself, when you get it in hand, that time, from there you have 12 years. Now, insofar as foreign awards are concerned, there were certain issues or certain, there were some vague points as to whether the same thing applies to foreign awards. Now the Madras High Court has clarified and set out that it's the same thing is applicable to foreign awards also. And just to make a side point, when I'm speaking of foreign awards, I'm speaking of foreign awards which fall within the within which are applicable to Part 2 of the Arbitration Act, which means that they are passed under the New York Convention. There are certain countries, including India, who are party to the New York Convention. Broadly speaking, they have all agreed that any award that is passed in their jurisdiction will be treated as enforceable in the jurisdiction of any other contracting party. So I make reference of foreign awards in the context of the New York Convention. When you get a New York Convention award, it will be treated again as a decree of the court, and therefore the same thing will apply 12 years. So if we go a little below. Now this is another contentious issue. So stamp duty, as we saw yesterday when we were going to file a section 11 seeking for appointment of an arbitrator, we saw, and even during the drafting provisions, we saw that the court will not act on a document which is not stamped or which is insufficiently stamped. Whether it is for appointment of arbitrator, whether it is for execution, same thing applies. The only exception which I will just highlight is under section 9, when you're seeking for interim reliefs and urgent interim reliefs. At that point of time, even if the award is not stamped, as the law stands today, you can still seek interim reliefs. But coming back to the discussion at hand, if you are seeking execution, the award has to be stamped. The stamp duty is 500 rupees. And as far as foreign awards are concerned, the Supreme Court has clarified that these awards are not required to be stamped. There is nothing in law that requires foreign awards to be stamped in order to seek enforcement. So just, there is someone who is requesting if that I repeat. Shivani, can you please tell me what part you want me to repeat? Okay, so we just saw the requirement of payment of stamp duty. Another small, seemingly small requirement, but very important requirement is for the parties to make payment of court fees. Now, in order to file an execution application, you have to make sure that all the formal requirements and monetary requirements are cleared. Every court or every jurisdiction would have separate requirements for payment of court fees. In Mumbai, for example, to file an execution application, you are required to pay a measly 20 rupees for filing an application for execution. One of the most important things is to check the form of filing. Now, each court again may have separate requirements. For today's session, I'll be dealing with the requirements of the Bombay High Court. Now, if both Vivek and Shreyansh, if you can click on the files below, Bombay High Court OS rules. Oh, that is quite. Is it possible for anyone to access this?
Yes, I may follow the instruction.
Can you open the file? Okay, anyway, so I have sent it, Vivek and Shreyas have sent it to you separately. So if you can just open these files, then we'll take a look at the requirements of the Bombay High Court.
Yes, yes.
Essentially, what I'm going to cover in these three requirements is that how the Bombay High Court requires the specific things that are required to be set out in the body of the application and along with the application of execution and who you are supposed to file it before. In the OS rules, we will see that an execution application is not determined or rather adjudicated upon by a judge. It is primarily supposed to be filed before the prothonotary or the registry, and it goes through that channel. In case any of the parties require matters to be referred to the court specifically, only then the judge will take charge and determine certain issues. Some of those things include the request for interim relief or appointment of a receiver, so on and so forth. An interim application would then have to be filed before the judge. The prothonotary or registry will not decide this kind of an issue. But otherwise, the execution process has to go through the prothonotary stage, the route of the prothonotary. So yes, Shriyans, I have shared the file with you. I've sent it at the Tathya email ID.
Okay, so sorry, I just download the file and check.
And after looking at Form 45, which is also prescribed under the Bombay High Court rules, Form 45 is essentially the tabular requirement of what details you are required to populate. And we will also look at a specific requisition list. Yeah, so we'll look at the requisition list of the Bombay High Court for all that is required along with the execution application in order to receive no objections, essentially. Okay, so that's Form 45 on one screen. I can see that. Shreyas's screen, if you can also upload it. Yeah, just rotate it. Yeah, so these are the broad particulars. In your execution application, when you're preparing it, it has to have these tabular requirements. First, setting out the particulars. Now, this is of course for a decree, but it is still used in execution of arbitration proceedings or arbitral awards as well. So the number that has been given, if at all there is any, then the names of the parties, date of the decree, whether any appeal has been preferred. Now, here in column D, in the case of arbitration, of course, it will not be an appeal. It will be whether a Section 34 application has been filed. Okay. Any stay has been granted, that also has to be set out, because if a stay has been granted, this execution application will not be accepted or it may not go further. There will be an objection from the court registry. What payments or adjustments have been made by the other side after the decree of the has been passed, which is to say that if the award has been passed and only partial sums have been paid by the award debtor, then that amount has to be disclosed. You have to say that yes, I have received certain amounts, but certain amounts are still pending, and for those amounts which are pending, I am requesting execution of that part. Any other applications previously or any other place that have been filed. So like we discussed, execution applications for arbitral awards can be filed in different jurisdictions and sometimes simultaneously as well. So you have to provide the particulars of all applications and you have to make all disclosures in that regard. Column G is very important because that is where you set out every single thing that has been awarded by the court with headers and with complete particulars. Suffice it to say that this is one of the most important requirements in the execution application. And as we move on in this session, I will show you a draft execution application and take you through all the requirements that are inside an actual execution application. The next thing that of course is the amount of costs, if at all they have been awarded, the person particulars who's against whom you seek enforcement. And last is the most important, where the mode of assistance that you require the court to provide. We discussed that there are several modes of enforcement and execution of an arbitral award. It could be by way of attachment, seeking a permanent injunction, or appointment of a court receiver. So you have to specify over here exactly what you need from the court, and accordingly the court will provide certain facilities or directions in order to ensure that your award is enforced. So if we can shut down this document and go on to the requisition list.
Ritik, sir, can you just repeat which list I have to show?
The requisition list.
Okay.
It's called execution application REQ list.
Yeah, I can see. Just a second.
Okay, I can see it on one of the screens. The other one, I'm just waiting.
Just a second.
So the point for those of you who the biggest nightmares is if the registry is going to raise objections, and you to ensure that the objections are clear. Because if they are not cleared, then the court or the protho will reject your execution application or will not take it any further, or you may not get any further dates in the matter in case there's an